In a small village, an old carpenter named Geppetto lived alone in a tiny workshop. He was known for making beautiful wooden toys, but he always wished for a son of his own. One day, he found a strange log outside his door. When he touched it, he thought he heard a tiny voice. Curious, he took the wood inside and began carving a puppet. As he shaped its face, the puppet blinked and smiled. Geppetto gasped. "You're alive." "Of course, I am." The puppet laughed. Geppetto named him Pinocchio. His wish had come true, but he didn't know that raising a wooden boy would be an adventure full of trouble. Pinocchio was playful and full of energy. He ran around the workshop, knocking things over. "Be careful," Geppetto scolded. "I just want to play." Pinocchio whined. Geppetto sighed. "If you want to be a real boy, you must learn to be good." When the school teacher knocked on the door, she asked if Geppetto would send his son to school. "School?" Pinocchio groaned. "Yes," Geppetto said. "Education is important." That night, Pinocchio lay in bed, thinking. School sounded boring. He wanted adventure. Little did he know, trouble was waiting for him the next day. The next morning, Geppetto gave Pinocchio a book and sent him to school. But on the way, Pinocchio heard music. He followed the sound and found a puppet theater. The colorful stage and dancing puppets excited him. "Come in," called the puppet master, Stromboli. Pinocchio forgot all about school. He watched the show, laughing and clapping. "You'd be perfect for my show," Stromboli said. "Stay with me, and you'll be famous." Pinocchio thought about it. Famous. That sounds fun. He didn't realize he was walking into a trap. Stromboli gave Pinocchio a shiny gold coin and made him perform in the puppet show. The audience loved him. But after the show, Stromboli locked him in a cage. "You belong to me now." Stromboli laughed. Pinocchio cried. "I want to go home." Just then, a small light appeared. It was the blue fairy. "Pinocchio, why didn't you go to school?" she asked. Pinocchio lied. "I was kidnapped." Suddenly, his nose grew longer. The blue fairy frowned. "Every time you lie, your nose will grow." Pinocchio panicked. "Okay, I skipped school for the puppet show." His nose shrank back to normal. "I'll give you one more chance," the fairy said, setting him free. Pinocchio promised to be good. But trouble was still ahead. On his way home, Pinocchio met a fox and a cat. The fox had a sly smile, and the cat pretended to be blind. "Where are you going, little puppet?" the fox asked. "Home," Pinocchio replied. "You have a gold coin," the cat said. "Why not plant it in the field of miracles? A money tree will grow." "A money tree?" Pinocchio's eyes widened. "Yes. You'll be rich," the fox said. Pinocchio followed them, unaware he was about to be tricked. The fox and the cat led Pinocchio to a quiet field. "Bury your coin here," the fox said. Pinocchio dug a hole and placed his coin inside. "Now what? Go to sleep," the cat said. "By morning, you'll have a money tree." Excited, Pinocchio dozed off. When he woke up, the fox and cat were gone, and so was his coin. He had been tricked. Sad and ashamed, he wandered back toward town. Embarrassed, Pinocchio didn't want to face Geppetto. "I'll go on an adventure instead," he decided. He met a group of boys heading to Pleasure Island, a place with no rules. They invited him to join. No school? Pinocchio asked. No rules, no work. Just fun. The boys laughed. Excited, Pinocchio followed them onto a boat, sailing to a place where another danger awaited. Pleasure Island was a dreamland. There were candy shops, roller coasters, and no adults to tell them what to do. Pinocchio ate candy, played games, and laughed. But something strange was happening. One by one, the boys were turning into donkeys. Pinocchio's ears grew long. His hands turned into hooves. What's happening? He cried. You're turning into a donkey. A talking cricket warned. Pinocchio screamed and ran, desperate to escape before it was too late. Pinocchio ran toward the shore and jumped into the sea. The water washed away his donkey features, but he was still just a puppet. I need to go home, he realized. When he reached Geppetto's workshop, it was empty. Where is he? Pinocchio asked the talking cricket. Geppetto went to sea looking for you. But his boat sank in a storm, the cricket said. Pinocchio's wooden heart ached. He had to find his father. Pinocchio dived into the ocean, searching for Geppetto. Suddenly, a giant whale appeared and swallowed him whole. Inside the dark belly of the whale, Pinocchio heard a voice. Father! Geppetto was there. He had been trapped for days. We need to escape, Pinocchio said. They built a fire inside the whale's belly. The smoke made the whales sneeze, blasting them out into the sea. Back home, the blue fairy appeared. You have proven yourself brave, Pinocchio, she said. But one more test remains. What is it? Pinocchio asked. You must always choose honesty, kindness, and courage. Pinocchio nodded. I will. With that, the fairy smiled and disappeared. That night, as Pinocchio slept, magic surrounded him. The next morning, Geppetto shook Pinocchio awake. Pinocchio blinked. His body felt warm and soft. I'm real. Geppetto hugged him. Yes, my son. You are a real boy. Pinocchio had finally earned his wish, not through magic, but through his heart. And from that day on, he was the best son Geppetto could ever ask for. Pinocchio woke up. Still in shock. He was no longer made of wood. His arms were warm, his fingers soft. He was a real boy. Geppetto was overwhelmed with joy, holding his son close. My dear Pinocchio, you've come so far. The blue fairy's magic had transformed him, but it was his own courage and kindness that had made him worthy of becoming real. I'll never disappoint you. Father, Pinocchio promised. I will always be good. But learning how to be a real boy was not as easy as he thought. Being a puppet had its advantages. Pinocchio never got tired, hungry, or hurt. Now, as a real boy, he felt pain when he fell, hunger when he missed meals, and sleepiness after a long day. Geppetto taught him how to care for himself. You must eat well, sleep early, and study hard, Geppetto said. Pinocchio groaned. I never had to do these things before. But now you're real, Geppetto smiled. And real boys must take care of themselves. Pinocchio soon realized that being real came with responsibility. Pinocchio was excited to start school as a real boy. But the other children were curious. Is it true you were a puppet? A boy asked. Yes, Pinocchio said proudly. Some children laughed. That's impossible. One boy, Bruno, was especially mean. "You're lying. You're just a silly storyteller." Pinocchio clenched his fists but remembered his promise to be good. Instead of fighting, he focused on his studies, proving he was more than just a wooden puppet. Bruno was jealous of Pinocchio's popularity. One day, he played a cruel trick. He stole the teacher's book and hid it in Pinocchio's desk. When the teacher found it, she frowned. "Pinocchio, did you take my book?" "No," Pinocchio said. But his nose didn't grow. He was telling the truth. The teacher realized someone else was lying. After investigating, she discovered Bruno was the real thief. Bruno was punished, and Pinocchio's honesty earned him respect from the whole class. One evening, Stromboli's traveling puppet show returned to town. Pinocchio and Geppetto went to see it, but Stromboli recognized Pinocchio immediately. "You made me lose money when you escaped," Stromboli growled. "You still owe me." Geppetto stood in front of Pinocchio. "He is my son now. Leave him alone." But Stromboli wasn't ready to let Pinocchio go so easily. That night, Stromboli sent his goons to kidnap Pinocchio. They dragged him to Stromboli's wagon. "If you don't perform, I'll turn you into firewood." Pinocchio had one last choice: give in to fear or use his courage. He kicked the goons and bit Stromboli's hand. Then, he ran for his life. As he reached home, the blue fairy appeared. "This was your final test," she said. "You have proven yourself to be brave, honest, and good." Pinocchio had truly changed. Word spread of how Pinocchio had escaped from Stromboli and stood up to Bruno. The townspeople admired his bravery and honesty. Even Bruno apologized for his past behavior. "I was wrong about you," Bruno admitted. Pinocchio forgave him. "We can all change." From that day forward, Pinocchio was seen as a hero, not because of magic, but because of his own heart. Years passed, and Pinocchio grew into a strong, kind young man. Geppetto never felt lonely again, and their home was always filled with laughter. One night, as Pinocchio looked up at the stars, he whispered, "Thank you, Blue Fairy." But he knew, it wasn't magic that made him real. It was his choices. And so, Pinocchio's journey was complete.